Hello and welcome to another video from the channel you need to not only survive the current apocalypse, but actually enjoy. And today we're going to be testing my tent. The one we're going to be testing today is a Coleman Insta tent, 14 foot by 10 foot Insta tent. Now this is one of those bargain buys I got. If you can see, it says salvage on it, and when I saw it sitting on the floor, it wasn't set up. A little bit nervous about getting it because I couldn't tell if everything was there. I knew there were no tent pegs and no rope, and I could see that a couple of screws were missing, and one of the legs was broken and the other legs were disassembled. But I messed with it for about 15 minutes before I made the purchase, and it looked like all of the pieces were there, and I had a feeling that since it was a Coleman product, I could replace the leg that was broke. So I purchased it, and it was about 50 bucks. Maybe a little bit more than that. It was 75% off when I bought it, and the price on here is about 250 bucks with tax. So what is that? I guess about 60 bucks. In any case, I dragged all the pieces out to my car and I got them home, and I didn't initially set it up because even on the way home I was thinking, you know, there's probably 5 or 6 of these outlets for this particular salvage store. Maybe it would be a good idea to go somewhere and see if they had another $60 tent at one of the other outlets and purchase it for parts. I'd still only have 120 bucks in it. So we did that because I didn't want to take a chance of somebody going up and buying the only other one that existed and then finding out I couldn't get the parts. And in fact, when I got home, I checked, and even though they still make these tents, they had discontinued making them with the metal legs. The legs are made out of fiberglass, and they had very specific note on the Coleman website that these fiberglass legs will not work with the older metal leg tents. So I knew I was in a little bit of trouble. Well, anyways, I found another one at another outlet, and it was only it was 90% off, so I got it for about 25 bucks. And I brought them both home and got all the best pieces and made one tent. Then I got all the worst pieces and straightened them the best I could, and actually got another perfectly good tent. Now, neither one of the tents I bought had ever actually been used. I think they were both damaged in delivery and simply sent back to the factory and sold to the salvage outlet. But in any case, we're going to put this up, and I'm going to spend about 30 days using it just to make sure that everything's okay. I've already set it up once, so I know that it's a full tent and it's pretty sturdy. But this is not the kind of tent that you're going to find if you go up Mount Everest with your buddies, because this is like a 3-season tent or 2-season tent, something like that. And the guys that go up and do all these radical things and in terrible weather use what's called a 4-season tent. They're very expensive. It's like $1,000 for a decent tent, and I don't have that. In fact, I didn't even have money for this, which is why I bought it at a salvage store for 75% off. All right, here's the actual tent, which is pretty big, and if you notice where I'm going to set it up, there aren't very many spots that are big enough to accommodate it. So what I did was I got what's called my footprint, which is nothing more than a Harbor Freight tarp, and I just walked it around until I found a spot that looked like it would accommodate the entire tent. And this is about it. Now, the footprint's about 1 foot short on either side and 6 inches short front to back. So I've kind of taken that into consideration while laying it out, and just to make sure that we're not going to tear up my footprint or my tent, I've got a bale of hay, which is about $6, and I'm going to put that down on the ground just to make sure that we have a little bit of cushion under there. We've got the footprint laid out about where we want it, so we're going to put straw under this footprint, and I'm going to mark the edges with the tent pegs just so I got a good reference as to where to throw my straw. Okay, I think that's the tent sitting in front of the footprint. I think I have it oriented the way I want to set it up, but I'm not really sure. This may turn into some kind of comedy. It's really advised. I didn't get any instructions with this, but I have set it up, and I set it up in the wind, and there were two of us at the time, and we were in a lawn, and it was very difficult because the wind kept wanting to break everything. And if you notice, it's kind of windy today, but we are in a densely wooded area. So even though you'll see leaves blowing by every now and then, for the most part the wind is above the tree line. So let's see if one person can do this. The next thing we're going to be installing on this tent is a Rainfly. Now Coleman advertises this tent as not needing a Rainfly, and if you take a good look at the way it's designed, you can see that it's pretty much put together in a way that would shed water, but I'm suspect of anything that I can carry under my arm keeping me and 6 other people dry. So I thought it was just a good idea to purchase this as an extra bit of protection. And in fact, I've got a couple of pretty big tarps, and it may be that during the day when I'm not using the tent, I'll throw a tarp over it just to keep the leaves from falling on it, to keep ultraviolet radiation down, whatever kind of damage the elements can hurl at this, simply because this is my tent. It costs a lot of money. But we'll be putting this on now. Okay, well now we've got the tent up and we've got the Rainfly installed. Nothing left to do but tie it down. Part of the cost of this project was having to buy a line to extend the lines that came with the tent out to stable objects and to tent pegs. This line was about $10, but I didn't really purchase it for this. I purchased it by accident. It's something for one of my nets I was making, but it's non-bonded, which means that it doesn't hold together very well. The bonding agent that they put in string is what keeps it from unraveling. When you cut it, well, this stuff here, if you cut it, it unravels pretty bad. And so whenever you cut it, the first thing you need to do is melt the ends. Otherwise, when you go back to get your spool again, you're just going to have a tangled mess. We're just going to do that with a lighter. You can get one of them to catch on fire, and you got it made. When it's windy, you really can't do this. You're going to have to go in the tent and zip the windows shut. But as soon as you can get a little bubble started, that's it. That's all she wrote. It's going to be together. I ain't coming apart. And do not let this drip on your hand, because it will really hurt you. Alright, now we'll go ahead and tie our tent off. Now these little things here are how you adjust the length of your line off of your tent. And it's basically just a little piece of plastic with 3 holes in it. And it allows you to do this. Now you have to do this before you tie it off. You're not able to actually take up slack. As far as I know, I haven't figured out how to do it. But, because once it's under tension, it just isn't gonna get any fatter or any skinnier. But this works out really good for tent pegs, because you just kind of basically set it till it's touching the ground and you stick your tent peg in there. For this line, we're going to go ahead and let it out for its full length, simply by sliding it along till you got a little bit of loop. And I'm going to put a line we just melted the end on in here, tied around this tree. Now, I didn't put this tree here so I'd have a place to tie my tent off. This is more or less an opportunistic tie-off point. A tree that somebody else put here. And all I'm going to do is, like I'm tying my shoes, put a bow in it. Because when I'm ready to take this tent down, I don't want to be struggling with a bunch of fancy knots. I don't think I can't do fancy knots. I was in the Navy for 6 years, and I make cast nets, so I can do manly knots, but you'll have to watch cast netting video to see them. Well, we got her all set up. I know this video isn't very long, but it actually took me about an hour and a half of physical exertion to get this thing put together. But we did all the extras. We put a footprint down, we put a Rainfly on, and we tied everything off. You can really pretty much set these up without tying anything off or staking it up if you've got nice weather. But if the weather changes, your tent can blow away or collapse or get all bent to pieces and turn into a pile of junk, so it's not a good idea to do that. A lot of what took most of the time, I mean, this is an instant tent, so you think instant would be less than an hour and a half, but there are I guess 8 stakes to hold it down, and then there's 12 ropes that had to be tied off, which means we had to find 12 anchor points and cut rope and melt the ends of it like we did. And the Rainfly has to be strapped down, so it's pretty involved, and you've got to kind of go all the way around several times like you're putting a rim on a car, because otherwise you'll pull the tent crooked, and we still haven't got it completely straight. But this looks like it's going to be a pretty nice tent. I'll be sleeping out here for the next 30 days, not just in this tent. I'm going to go ahead and set another tent up right next to it and just take turns there. Hopefully we'll get a chance to test them both out. And cold. For me, extreme cold is just any time it gets under freezing, and it's supposed to get down to 29 tonight. I'm in the deep south. Hopefully we'll get a really, really windy day. Hopefully we'll get a sunny day, really hot day, get a a day when it rains really hard, and we'll test both tents out under all those different conditions.